Okay, this is part 2 of feeding the force. This is going to be the logistics side. You need to know this for planning how much food to have, and also look at how much you have and calculate how long it will last. Now, I did this stuff up with rice and beans being the bare minimum for every day for the ration. You obviously can substitute. You can substitute some ramen noodles for the rice, once in a while type things. You're not going to substitute it all the time. You can substitute actual meat for the beans, but be careful on the quantity and the types. So I will talk about some substitutions and stuff later. But here's some of the numbers I came up with when I was doing this, and I only went up to a squad. If you're going to calculate for a platoon, you need to take those squad numbers and multiply it by the number of squads you're going to feed. And then that's really going to blow your mind. Because when you get up to, say, a platoon of 3 to 4 squads, you're looking at about half a ton of rice alone. Around 1,000 pounds. It is mind-boggling. Now, for an individual, and the information I'm getting this from is from prepper websites. Figure daily, each individual needs 1 pound of uncooked rice. Once it's cooked, it doubles to triples in size for volume, not the weight. So it goes from 16 ounces, 2 cups, to 4 to 6 cups when you're cooking it. Beans, individual needs 8 ounces of beans or protein a day. Those do not change in size when you rehydrate them much. They'll stay about the same for volume. And then figure every day you should probably have 1 MRE or 1 freeze-dried meal to supplement your stuff. And you should really think about 1 multivitamin per person per day. So it'd be one vitamin and then 1 MRE or freeze-dried per day. For a week, for an individual, 7 pounds of rice, 3.5 pounds of beans, 7 vitamins, and 7 MREs or freeze-drieds. For a 30-day period for one person, 30 pounds of rice, 15 pounds of beans, 30 MREs and freeze-drieds, 30 multivitamins. Now, for a fire team of 3 to 5 individuals, 3 to 5 pounds of uncooked rice per day, 1.5 to 2.5 pounds of uncooked beans per day, 3 to 5 MREs, freeze-drieds, 3 to 5 multivitamins per day. For 1 week for a fire team, 21 to 35 pounds of uncooked rice, 10.5 to 17.5 pounds of uncooked beans, 21 to 35 freeze-dried meal pouches or MREs, and 21 to 35 multivitamins per week. For a 30-day period for a fire team, 90 to 150 pounds of uncooked rice, 45 to 75 pounds of uncooked beans, 90 to 150 MREs or freeze-dried meal pouches. For a squad of 6 to 10 people per day, 6 to 10 pounds of uncooked rice, 3 to 5 pounds of uncooked beans, 6 to 10 MREs or freeze-dried pouches, and 6 to 10 multivitamin pills per day. For a 7-day period for a week, 42 to 70 pounds of rice, 21 to 35 pounds of beans, 42 to 70 MREs or freeze-dried pouches per day, and 42, that's per week, 42 to 70 multivitamins per week. This is with an issue of 1 MRE or 1 freeze-dried pouch per day. If you're going to go 3 times a day, 3 times that number then per week. Now, for a 30-day period for a squat, 180 to 300 pounds of uncooked rice, 90 to 150 pounds of uncooked beans, 180 to 300 MREs or freeze-dried pouches per month per 30-day period, and 180 to 300 multivitamin tablets per 30-day period for a squad. Let that sink in. Now, my stuff is based on the calculations with rice to bean ratio according to the prepper community is supposed to be 2 parts rice for every 1 part beans. So 8 ounces of beans, you need 16 ounces of uncooked rice. That is to give you the complete proteins and nutrients when you mix them together. Together they are complementary. They give you most of what you need for the day. Supplement that with multivitamin, and because you're going to need extra calories, extra nutrition, toss in there that 1 MRE or 1 freeze-dried a day. Now, the 1 pound of rice, 8 ounces of beans per person per day, that gives that person, just with those alone, 1,900 calories. The average adult needs 2,000 to 2,500 calories per day resting. When you are in a combat situation, you can easily double or triple your caloric requirements every day. And when you are in a survival situation in the field, you're going to need more proteins. You're going to need more carbohydrates to provide those quick energy sources that you need for moving quickly and operating in the field, having that strength to keep you going. Now, don't forget, your body will also need salt. You sweat out too much salt, you drink too much water, you can end up with what's called water intoxication. It happens at basic training bases in the U.S. military every summer. People sweat out too much salt and they don't replace it. Low sodium diets really have no place in the field. That's where that extra sodium inside freeze-dried pouches is going to shine, is when you're in the field. Because you're going to be drinking a lot more water because you're dehydrating. Well, when you do that, you also have to increase your salt intake. Do not take salt tablets. Add salt to your body by seasoning your food. Also remember, sugars. Our society is addicted to sugars. They're addicted to it from pastries, from candies, from drinks. You can get around that or try to lessen the impact of coming off of that stuff by trying to include in there fruits that you find in the field, sweeter stuff, adding in, say, sweet rice on a breakfast and that type of stuff. And I have a meal breakdown here too. And then also your drinks. Adding some sugar to your tea, sugar to coffee, that type of thing. That'll help with your sugar cravings to help cut it down. But you're still going to be getting a lot less sugar than you do in a normal civilian world in a guerrilla situation. You will go through withdrawals. You will be very snappy to people as your body is coming off of that continuous sugar high you've been living on for years. Now, for thinking on the numbers here and breakdowns for the actual meal plan. For one person, you can give, say, half of the rice, half of the beans at your breakfast. So 8 ounces of rice, 1 cup, and 4 ounces of beans, half a cup. As the main part of your meal, have with it your multivitamin at that meal. If you have any fruit and that type of stuff, take it then. You know, if you have any eggs that you scrounged for, traded for, foraged for, go through, make yourself basically a fried rice dish at breakfast time, or you can remove those beans, put them over to later in the day, substitute some other type of meat, maybe add in some sugar into the rice to make yourself sweet rice at breakfast, give you that additional little kick. Lunchtime or midnight, whatever it turns out to be depending on your operational cycle, that'll be when you have your MRE or your freeze-dried. You can eat freeze-dried cold with just putting water in there, letting it soak. Be advised, the time it takes to rehydrate that meal essentially doubles when you just go with cold water in the pouch. I've tried it, it sucks, it takes a lot longer. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a lot of crunchy stuff in there, a lot of powdery mix that didn't mix if you go to 10 minutes like it says on the pouch. For dinner, this is once again for an individual, 8 ounces of rice, 4 ounces of beans. And if you get, I really recommend foraging for wild edibles to add to your meals, so that instead of just having plain rice and beans, you'll have something else in it or something alongside it. Like maybe you'll have some fried cattail stalks mixed in with it. Maybe you'll have some wild mushrooms that you know are edibles. That's confirmed. You have that added into your rice and bean mix. If you took your 4 ounces of beans out from the breakfast, add that in with your dinner so that you get the correct amount of beans for the day for your proteins. If you add any additional protein in there during the day from wild game, from fish, whatever, consider that a supplement to your stuff and still have your 4 ounces of beans. Now for a fire team, for one meal, either the breakfast or the dinner, you are looking at 1.5 to 2.5 pounds of uncooked rice, which comes out to 3 to 5 cups uncooked. When that triples, you are looking at 9 to 15 cups of cooked rice. Take this into consideration when you're picking your cook gear for doing this stuff in. Now, for one meal for a fire team, beans, it's 3/4 pound to 1.25 pounds of uncooked dry beans, which comes out to 1.5 cups to 2.5 cups. And then obviously your vitamin in the morning, I recommend having it then so that you have that additional nutrition pumping through your system through the day. Lunchtime, you'll be looking at your 3 to 5 MREs of freeze-drieds, and then your dinner, what I told you for the initial meal. For squad, for calculations for a single meal, either your breakfast or your dinner, 3 to 5 pounds of rice, which is 6 to 10 cups, 1.25 to 2.5 pounds of beans, which is 3 to 5 cups. And remember, with the rice, that 6 to 10 cups, that's uncooked. Once you rehydrate it, it's fully hydrated. You're looking at 18 to 30 cups. Now, some substitutions in here. Ramen noodles, a single pack is typically around 370 to 400 calories per pack. Take that into your consideration. Be advised, if you're substituting rice with ramen noodles, you're not going to get as many complete proteins and nutrition when mixed with beans in the diet. Also want to mention in here, protein sources. Things you should not overlook. If you're smart enough, if you can identify it, mushrooms count as a protein source. Wild mushrooms. Ones that are easy to identify, that you know are not going to poison you, not going to kill you. Also look at small game. And in that small game, I include in there rats. Believe it or not, rats are edible, as long as they are not feeding on carcasses or corpses. Now, when I've looked this up in the past, the recommendation is no more than 2 rats per person per day. The reason for that, there is an enzyme in the meat of a rat that actually thins your blood. So if you eat too many of them in a single day, it really thins out your blood, which can cause major issues. And I would say have that 2 rats like once every 2 to 3 days. Don't do it every day, because then your blood's going to be really thin. And if you get wounded, you're going to bleed out that much faster. Another protein source that you really should think about is dog. I know a lot of people have a hang up with this because, well, they have a pet dog at home, so they can't see themselves eating a dog. You ambush an enemy squad, an enemy platoon. They have a dog team in there, and they were using that dog to track you down. You shoot that dog just like you do them. Don't waste the meat. Skin it, gut it, cut its head off. Leave that there as a nice little grotesque pile, a little grotesque display to freak out the enemy when they come for the bodies. Take that meat back to your camp, clean it up, roast it, grill it, chop it up, fry it, stew it up, whatever. It's additional protein. Dog is a delicacy in Asia. It does not taste that bad. And it will add needed protein to your soups and your stews. Just checking over my notes, see if I have anything else here. That pretty much covers it. Now, when I did the numbers here, I was shocked, especially when I looked at the 30-day supplies for like a squad and a team. I'm going to change how I do my cache cases and how I do my cache clusters because of these numbers. I'm going to change my ratios of some of the stuff and some of my cases and that type of thing. And it's also given me ideas of new types of cases I can put out, such as cases that are nothing but freeze-dried meals, cases that are nothing but rice, in order to get the correct mix. Things to consider. This makes your head hurt, but when you're trying to supply your force, you're trying to feed your force, don't overlook this. Rice and beans is the easiest for us to get a hold of. That's why I use that as the basis for each base for each day. Substitute as needed with what you have, what you can get a hold of, to try to get your stuff to last longer. There you go. Hopefully this will help some of you for your calculations for as to how long you can survive in the field with what you already got out there, what you have on you, what you still need to get out there. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and Militia movements, always remember, essay ons.